Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam Cobbs, and I am the CEO of the Tipping Point community. Thank you for joining us for our first in a series that we have titled To the Point. And we will keep you here for about 30 minutes or so and try to get directly to the point of the conversation that we're having today. For those of you who are new to Tipping Point, we're an organization that exists to advance the best poverty fighting solutions in the Bay Area. One of the ways that we do this is by going out and finding and funding some of the best groups who are on the front lines fighting poverty in the Bay Area. One of those such groups is JVS, or Jewish Vocational Service, in supporting them in their work to move more people out of poverty. We leverage that by bringing in people like Florence, a longtime Tipping Point supporter, friend of Tipping Point, and leveraging their generosity and creativity. And so want to thank Tyler and Lisa for joining us today, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation and dialogue with the both of them. If you are anything like me, you're really puzzled about this moment in time and what is happening in communities and how the current COVID-19 crisis is impacting vulnerable communities. Over the next 25 minutes or so, we're going to talk about one of those populations, and that is hourly workers, and what is the impact that this crisis is having on our hourly workers. As I said, I'm joined today by Tyler Florence, great friend of Tipping Point, restaurateur, TV personality. The list goes on and on. I joked with Tyler yesterday when we did a pre-call that I feel like I'm the first person ever to operate a food truck in the rural South, selling hot wings in Mississippi. And so Tyler and his wife Tolan have been great supporters of Tipping Point, and were tremendous during the North Bay fires with stepping up to help out the community there, from everything to hosting and serving meals to creating a documentary of what that experience was afterward. I am also joined by Lisa Countryman-Quiroz, who is the CEO of Jewish Vocational Services, one of the premier organizations in the San Francisco Bay Area that has built a reputation and strong expectations around working with vulnerable populations and communities and training them to put them in not just any type of job, but quality jobs here in the Bay Area. And so thank you to both of you for joining us. So as the title says, we're going to get straight to the point. And so I am super sorry if I have to interrupt, if I lean in a little bit more, because we have 30 minutes. I want to make sure we have a lot of material to cover. I've talked to both of you. I know you have a lot of great, awesome things to say, and we want to make sure that we get all of that out there to our to the people who are on the webinar with us. So the first question I have is thinking back, if you can, back to February before all of this hit, and really focusing in on our workforce. And Tyler, for you, your workforce that's working in your restaurants and the people that you advise restaurants. And Lisa, for you, the people that you're training. What were you thinking about then about that workforce and hourly workers versus what are you thinking about now? And so let's start with Tyler. What were you thinking in February before all of this hit, and what is it that you're thinking about now in regards to hourly workers and those workers who are probably some of the most impacted by this?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Sam and Lisa. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you today. I'm a huge fan and a big supporter of Tipping Point. We've done lots of really good work together in the past, and I want to say what an honor it is to be with everybody today, especially in this really trying time. And I think it's these small little moments that we get a chance to intersect with each other, just to let them know, like, there's humanity happening. There's good news, there's planning, there's creativity, there's steps forward. They're in the process right now. So I just want to thank you for the invitation of being here with you guys today. But what happened in February? I don't even remember. You know what I mean? February felt like 5 years ago. So I don't, we were right in the middle of planning a whole big season with Food Network. We were going to shoot, 2 seasons of the Great Food Truck Race back to back. My digital production company, we were, planning on 2 seasons with Food Network, shooting different things. And we were just in the process of kind of hustling and doing our good work that we do every day. We're also in the middle of planning a brand new restaurant with the Golden State Warriors. We're doing a new steakhouse called Miller and Lux. That was supposed to be in full-blown construction right now and opening probably sometime in September, August, September sometime. That's obviously been pushed back. So we were just doing our thing. We were just right in the middle of, we got a new cookbook we're working on this year. So we had, between our production company and our connection with Food Network and how that starts to scale. And also with our Food Network, I mean, I'm impacted by, 1,500 employees, 1,500 associates that were kind of working on projects that we're associated with kind of on a daily basis. So there, and all those folks were engaged. So as of right now, we're just trying to figure out what those next steps are and trying to keep the ball rolling in ways that we possibly can.
Thank you. And what about for you, Lisa? What were you thinking about then, and how has that changed?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. And thank you also for allowing me to be part of this conversation and feature the work that JVS does. I really appreciate it, and appreciate Tyler for being here too. For me, I can kind of quantify this difference as the difference between, in February, we had about a 2.3% unemployment rate in San Francisco, and nationally now we're approaching 20% unemployment rate. The numbers I saw this morning were 26 million people nationally have filed for unemployment, which is huge and much greater than we anticipated it was going to be even at the beginning of the month. In February, we were deep in strategic planning, really focusing in on how we were going to expand our career pathways training, which is really about supporting people in getting connected to high quality jobs on a career path and supporting their economic mobility. And now, of course, we're looking at millions and millions of people out of work. We're looking at really low hiring. And so we're focused on meeting our clients where they are in the short term, medium term, and long term. And so for us, what that looks like is, keeping our community safe and stable, connecting them with resources and emergency supports, and connecting people with, rapid rehiring events, which are happening. We've been working with the United States Postal Service, which is hiring 1,000 people in San Francisco in a wide variety of jobs that are great opportunities. We are also working with the San Francisco Chamber to understand the needs of their constituents, both in terms of layoffs that are coming, but also surges in hiring that they're facing. In the medium term, we're also very, very focused on staying super connected and close with all of our employer partners. The work that we do in Career Pathways is done in close partnership with employers who contribute financially to programs and, of course, provide work experience for our clients. And so we want to stay connected to them so we can understand how those jobs are going to change over time. And then lastly, we really want to focus on preparing people for the new economy. Millions of people are sheltered in place right now. How can we help them build their technology skills so that they're really prepared to plug in to resilient job opportunities in the future? So those are some of the ways that we've been responding.
So thank you both for that. And so just as a housekeeping moment, that if you have a question for our panelists, please use the chat function, and I will try to curate those questions and bring them to the panelists. And so, Lisa, you talked a little bit about the new economy and what's happening and how you're training people. I know for me, I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks talking to my board members and saying, how should I be thinking about the next 18 months, the next 2 years at Tipping Point, and what's happening around the corner? And some of the advice I've gotten is, Sam, I know you're a planner, but learn to live in the uncertainty. Because if anyone tells you what's happening in 18 months, then they're probably lying to you, because nobody really knows right now. And this was brought to life, Tyler, I think in the pre-conversation we had, where there are people like you, Tyler, who are out there, and when we think about that new economy, when we're thinking about the restaurant business, Tyler, and I know you're working really hard and thinking about this, what can we expect? What are some of the things that are now being accelerated that maybe were ideas that were put on the shelf during great times, but now maybe there's an opportunity to be more innovative and creative. And so, Tyler, can you give us some insight into some of the things that you're working on that maybe 3-4 months ago were seen as potentially crazy?
Well, the unemployment rate and the spike in the last 2 weeks in the state of California, majority of those recipients are restaurant hospitality workers, for sure, without a question, right? And so I always think about the restaurant culture coast to coast, and specifically in our little area of San Francisco, as the quilt that kind of holds the fabric of our cities together, right? And COVID found that one string that you could pull that unraveled the entire quilt of our food system, right? I mean, and so it impacts not only the human aspect of all of this because of the unemployment and the uncertainty that kind of goes along with that, but also it starts to unravel our entire food system, all the way down to our farmers and our meat suppliers and our produce and our fishermen that really kind of provide our ingredients that we cook with on a daily basis. So that money dried up in 2 seconds, and no one really knows exactly what to do with that or how to respond to that in a way. And so I always think that, so some of the best art in the 20th century was created at the height of World War II. So there is creativity to be had. There are options and solutions out there to really think through. And we're working on a couple of those innovative ideas right now. Like, we just launched a program with Patreon, where we're taking the idea of restaurants, and not just sort of the hot live meal that you would get inside of a restaurant, but now really start to think about, can we maximize our creative expertise and be a solution-oriented pipeline of information to you through a membership service. So we just launched with Patreon this past week, and we've had a tremendous amount of support. We've had a tremendous amount of interest in the idea. So creating a whole new revenue stream for restaurants has been really kind of exciting. And it's really kind of, thinking about things that people are really doing now. Curation of custom pantry items, so if we can make you organic chicken stock and give you organic flour and peppered bacon and organic chicken breasts and good cheese and olive oil and these things, and we can drop these things off to your door and act as sort of a micro grocery delivery system, I think that's wildly innovative, right? And the idea that of chefs cooking and doing live demonstrations from their kitchen straight into your kitchen, there's some real value there. There's some value in that information exchange, right? So the idea of restaurants kind of becoming not just a place for sustenance, but a place for ideas, and a place where the community can kind of come together, and you can not only back some of your favorite restaurants and favorite chefs, but think about what this is going to look like on the outside. If you can imagine, a primetime reservation block of 7 to 8:30 being members only, right? Like, if you were there for us in the hard time, we're going to be there for you in the good times, like we always are in the restaurant industry anyway. So there's lots of really good creativity that's happening out there right now that I think is going to turn into, some positive actions and hopefully more revenue in the long term. But as of right now, I've never seen, like, the 2008 downturn has nothing on this, it's nothing. Because that was sort of predictable in a way. I mean, it happened really fast, but not as fast as this. And as the economy started to kind of build back up between 2008, 2009, it looked like we could, there was still some sort of hope out there. So this will be interesting to see this recovery. This will be very interesting to see how this starts to pull out. I agree with you. I have no idea how this is going to transpire. I have no idea what's going to come of all of this, but we're holding our own, right? So we got a food truck right away at Wayfair Tavern, and we started taking the idea of curbside service to more curbs in San Francisco. And that's been a cash flow gift, although not nowhere near what we made on a daily or weekly basis in the restaurant, but at least it's something that we can keep our core, 15 employees that we have left alive. And that to me is something, right? So we'll start with, our top tier management that are all doing 3-4 things right now just to keep the restaurant going. And we're going to keep those people alive. And then we'll start rehiring one little small block at a time. We'll rehire another 10, another 15, another 20 as these things start to materialize. But I really like the idea of the membership application of this, because there's something to that we can really give you something like spiritually fulfilling. And so when we kind of open up the restaurant again, we'll be there for you on such a whole new level. And we'll get to know our favorite customers even better. And that's what I like about that.
Thank you, Tyler. And Lisa, as you're thinking about this, and that there are people, and I say, don't waste a good crisis. We never want to be in a crisis, but if we're here now, then what are the creative and innovative things that we can do? And there's someone right now who is somewhere thinking about what is the next Airbnb. And so 4 years ago, we would have never thought that we would be living in strangers' homes on vacations. And so as you're trying to think about how to train the new workforce in that new economy, what are some of the things that you're thinking about and preparing for?
Yeah, I think what Tyler said was very, very analogous to, I think, some of the dynamics that we're working with. Basically, this whole situation has blown up a model that we had a lot of faith in and that we were really accustomed to, and that we were really focused on just refining and making better and stronger. And this just blew that up. And so now we're, of course, watching to see what happens. I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. But it is giving us the opportunity, despite the horrors this is wreaking as well, it's also giving us the opportunity to try things that we've wanted to try, that we didn't have the opportunity to try before. And that is, we are now really leaning into, because we have to, a variety of modalities of online training. And for the workforce world, that's pretty new and pretty different, in large part because so many of us are working with a highly, highly vulnerable population. And we've always felt like that one-on-one, in-person contact is essential. And I do believe it remains essential. But this is allowing us to really test the limits. And if we can get it right, it means significantly increased capacity, because online there are resources to train in sort of any area you like. So significantly increased capacity at multiple levels, significantly increased access for people. So if you think of, the single mom who has childcare issues and would not have been able to come to a JVS program in the past, now she can, and maybe she can do that at multiple times during the day. In the past, we've provided training only 9 to 5. Now this has the potential to really open that up as well. If we get really good at online training, there are many more service areas we could be supporting as well. So we're not just bound by our geography. So there's a lot of significant potential there. Also, I think this gives us an occasion and an opportunity to really lean into digital skills training, tech skills training in a whole new way beyond anything we've ever done before. So we're testing out a whole host of new services, from hyper-relevant, hyper-timely things like how to interview on Zoom, to things like how to be an online learner, to providing trainings like Intro to Agile and Scrum. And these have been rolled out. I have to give a lot of kudos to my staff, particularly my team member, Becca Rosenbaum, who's rolled out a whole host of new workshops and trainings over the last couple of weeks at a pace that we've never seen before. So this is giving us the opportunity to learn and to test in a way that I think is going to be really exciting and forces us to be set up for the future.
Well, Lisa, let me ask you a question real fast. So tell me about the idea of work from home, because I think that's one of the most interesting aspects of all of this.
Yeah.
That we've been forced to work from home, but it's kind of nice, to be honest with you, right? Like, who wants to go sit in traffic and drive into a densely populated city center to answer emails and make phone calls? And you can easily do that from home. I suspect that the suburbs are going to explode in a way with this new era of being self-sufficient and not having to waste your precious lifetime sitting in traffic just to go do what you can do at home. I think we're going to become more efficient. I think we're going to become better partners and better parents, right? Because we can actually be there and probably get 24 hours a week back by not having to sit in traffic. Do you think that's going to be something that's going to blow up?
I absolutely think that the longer this goes on, the deeper the structural changes are going to be, both in terms of jobs, what jobs look like. I think that there will be significantly increased levels of working from home. And I think that's why for us, for an organization that's really focused on serving the lower income, more vulnerable population, it's absolutely top of mind for me that we're helping people build digital skills so that they can secure that kind of much more resilient employment. And so that's why that's really a big priority for me.
So I am, as I'm looking at the Q&A function that is at the bottom of the screen for the people who are joining us, it looks like we have about 125 participants. Thank you for joining us today. One of the interesting question is that at Tipping Point, we have really embraced over the last few years public-private partnerships and understanding what is the role of philanthropy, what are the role of nonprofit organizations, what is the role of corporations and businesses, but also what is the role of government, and how can we work collaboratively and complementary of what all of those sectors have to offer. And so one of the things that has been interesting is that during this crisis, our federal government and also our state government have just pumped a ton of money into our communities, into our systems to keep the economy moving at some front, at some factor. My question for you, and I'll start with this one with Lisa, is if you had that opportunity to tell your elected officials, your government, what it is that they should be focused on, how it is that they could help advance your efforts and the efforts of workers and low-income people and hourly workers, what is it that you would tell them? What are you happy to see that's happening? What do you wish there were more of that was happening from our elected officials and from government at this time?
Great question. I think that there's a lot
Great
of us
questions,
in the space
Carol.
have very long wish list here. I think, one of the things is, and this is true before this crisis, it's true now, access to healthcare, access to childcare are critical factors in just job and life quality. Obviously, under shelter in place, that can look pretty different, but those are two features that allow people to work or not that are really important. I think that we are not anywhere near approaching the level of investments in education and workforce training that we need. I think during the recession, one of the really effective tools that was used was subsidized employment. I think we could see much more of that. That would be a huge aid to individuals as well as to business. And then lastly, I think, we are ripe for a large infrastructure investment. That could be an incredible job creation program that would increase our quality of life, that could have a positive environmental impact. So those would be four things that I would really want to focus on.
Thank you. And Tyler, how can government, how can public officials help you in what it is that you're doing now as a restaurateur?
Well, I think it's sort of two different areas. First one, my dogs are barking. Apparently they didn't get the email. There's a Tipping Point webinar today, so I apologize for that. I think it's sort of two ideas, right? There's what we do as restaurateurs and the restaurant community, and there's also food safety and food security from a geographical point of view, like for the mass population, right? So I think we really have to invest in a lot of infrastructure to make sure that these pipelines of food can get to people as fast as possible in an emergency like this, because I think if you switch out pandemic for earthquake or pandemic for fire, a lot of these situations are starting to happen on an annual basis. I mean, we've been on the front lines with the fires up here in Northern California for the last 3 years, and every October we just kind of get ready. This past October we were in Sonoma at the fairgrounds for 14 days, living in a camper, just feeding 6,000 people 3 meals a day until their communities opened back up again and the fires started to subside where they could actually move back into their own homes. And so that vulnerability is starting to become pretty obvious, that there's no big plan in place to take care of a population if something really bad happens, right? And so we're starting to get good at it and starting to address the situation. But I think this could be just something we could really kind of like flex on in the future. And I think that could possibly be with, you know, taking public schools and using them for a dual purpose, right? So I think if we went, because Alice Waters and I were talking about this a couple of months ago, about the idea of putting a chef in every school, right? And not only have them become, you know, a nutritional stopgap for a lot of our, students in our state to make sure they're getting healthier meals on a regular basis, but also take those public schools and have them be, you know, public kitchens, if, you know, regional public kitchens, if something tragic were to happen, that chefs not only could have a deeper understanding of how to feed students on a daily basis, but also have emergency training, where we could take public schools and actually do something where you knew that within a mile or two of wherever you live in the state of California, if you had to go to a soup kitchen, that you knew where to go. Right? If something were to happen, if there were now new like micro, food banks in a way where you could go get fresh, hot food if you needed to, that to me feels like something that I think the state should work on, because there's rumor that we're in a new drought, you know, and so no one knows what, you know, a second wave of COVID plus a fire season will look like coming up in October. You know, I think we should just prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So that's something that I think if I were in the state right now, I would start to put some serious consideration into what, a double whammy of a second wave of COVID plus a fire season would look like for the state of California.
Okay. So my last question before we wrap this today. And so I need both of you to leave me enough time to do my tipping point commercial before we go. And so my question is that, and I'm looking at the participant list here, and if we have people on our webinar who have been laid off, their hours have been severely cut, and they were part of our hourly workforce, what advice would you give them right now in this moment, or what inspiration would you give them right now in this moment? Lisa, if we could start with you.
Advice and inspiration. I would say that this will end. I would reach out at JVS. We always recommend, you really want to build on and reach out to your network. I would reach out to your network. I would get connected. I would get connected to JVS and tap into the many resources that we provide. And I would really focus in on building skills in the short term to be ready for the next economy.
And Tyler, advice, inspiration that you would give to people who are stressed and worried right now because they've been laid off or hours severely cut? So.
I would make sure that you're filing for every single bit of government assistance you can get your hands on, right? I think that's the most important thing. The difference between having nothing and having $300-400 a month. I mean, it makes all the difference in the world when it comes to groceries. I'm really proud of the leadership out of Sacramento to put a moratorium on evictions. So no one's going to get evicted in the middle of this, which is really critical. So you can at least breathe through that. Because most people really don't have a month worth of cash on hand. People live paycheck to paycheck, and that's what the real world looks like. And so we're also working hand in hand with Restaurants Care, which is a nonprofit foundation with the California Restaurant Association. And so if you go onto restaurantscare.org, you can either donate to the fund itself, or if you're a restaurant worker in the state of California and you've been affected by COVID, you can apply for assistance, and we will get to this as fast as possible. And if you're documented, undocumented, it doesn't matter. If you're a dishwasher, prep cook, line cook, executive chef, dishwasher, bar back, host, whoever it is, if you're in the restaurant industry, the California Restaurant Association has your back. And if you, so it's restaurantscare.org. So please check that out. It's an amazing resource, fabulous people. We've been working on with them for a couple of weeks. And then stay close to people that you really trust and love, right? Like if you're hungry, call a friend, someone will go get you McDonald's. Somebody will, like, you know it. Like we're reaching out to a lot of our friends all over the country. Like we have a friend of ours who's a bartender in New York City. And he was just like, you know, he said he was terrified to death to go to a grocery store in New York because of the lines and because of how rampant COVID is in NYC right now. So we sent him a box of Frog Hollow avocados, you know? So that little bit of humanity that we're expressing, I think people can do that. So either reach out to people that you know could be vulnerable, if it's, you know, elderly people in your neighborhood, to make sure they're safe. And if you're affected in a real deep way and you're like, I don't have money to feed my children tonight, just reach out and don't be embarrassed or ashamed to ask for help, because it'll come back around to you. And you'll be in a situation at some point in time to help that other person out. So I think we're, you know, be patient, be very kind. You never really know what someone else's day is like, and just be willing to give something to somebody. And I think collectively we'll get through this together.
That's an excellent point to end on. Be patient, be kind. We will get through this together. At Tipping Point, as you all know, we launched a $30 million campaign to aid our community in their COVID-19 response. We're about almost 2/3 of the way there, almost to 20 million. I know there are some people on the phone today who can help us get to 20 million. Please take a look at our website for ways that you can support hourly workers. And we'll try to make sure, Tyler, that as we email after this to our community, that we put the link to restaurantcares.com. So thank you for joining us for our first call. Thank you to Lisa, Tyler. I know Tolan is somewhere in the back. Give a huge thank you to your wife, Tyler. We appreciate you, Lisa, and everything that you do. Thanks to all for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure. Lisa, it was great hanging out
Thank
with you.
you.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank
You too. Thank you. Bye.